Hello friends and clean freaks, welcome to the very first episode of what I hope will be an ongoing series called Curious and Clean. This series is inspired by my love of watching YouTube cleaning videos, but it always frustrates me that they're supposed to inspire you to clean, but the moment that you look away, there's nothing to listen to but music. We're going to be cleaning, but we're also going to be learning something new together. So maybe you'll actually be able to get some cleaning done and have something to listen to keep you occupied. And if you don't want to clean anything, that's okay too. Each video, I'm going to tackle a topic that I find interesting. This could be anything from mysteries and conspiracy theories to random topics and rabbit holes that I fall down on the internet. Today I'm bringing you one of my favorite mysterious true crime cases. Now, I have no interest in turning this series into a murder clean with me series, but this case is pretty mild, there's no violence, and it's more intriguing than it is gruesome. This is the disappearance of Bobby Dunbar. Let's get curious and clean. I first heard about this wild story on one of my favorite podcasts, This American Life. If you've never heard This American Life with Ira Glass before, you are missing out. They cover so many interesting stories on different topics, but this is one that has really stood out to me and I have remembered through the years. I'll link the podcast episode in the description below. It is well worth a listen with lots of interviews and insights that I won't be able to do justice to. But let's get into the disappearance of Bobby Dunbar, a mystery so deep that it wasn't solved for over 90 years. On August 23, 1912, Bobby Dunbar was 4 years old and he traveled with his parents and little brother to Swayze Lake in Louisiana for a fishing vacation. It was an idyllic lake vacation, fishing, playing, swimming, family time. Bobby spent the morning playing in the swampy lake, but when it was time to fry the fish for lunch, he was gone. The only trace of him left was a short trail of small footprints that ended in the mud near the lake. So what happened to Bobby Dunbar? Immediately a search was launched. Searchers dragged and dynamited the lake, but there was no sign of any body. They even considered the possibility that alligators had gotten the boy. But after hunters captured a few alligators in the area and cut them open and there was no evidence of that, they really didn't know. He had simply vanished. His parents, the Dunbars, were convinced that he had been kidnapped and that he would be held for ransom because they were a very well-off family. So they offered a hefty reward, which further ignited lots of sightings and tips of many blonde-haired and blue-eyed boys. After an 8-month investigation and a nationwide, highly publicized search, investigators still didn't have any answers. Until suddenly, things changed. The investigators claimed to have found the missing boy in Mississippi with a man named William Walters. Walters claimed the boy traveling with him was not Bobby Dunbar at all. In fact, he said that the child was named Charles Bruce Anderson, better known as just simply Bruce. He was the son to a woman who worked for Walter's family, and her name was Julia Anderson. The police did not believe him. They placed him under arrest for kidnapping and took the boy into custody. When the Dunbars were initially contacted, they raced to Mississippi to identify the boy and see if it was their missing son, Bobby. At their very first meeting, Mrs. Dunbar, Bobby's mom, wasn't sure that the boy was actually her son at all. But she gave him a bath, and then she claimed that it was him because she saw scars and marks that she had seen on her son's body on this child's body. Mrs. Dunbar took him home with her to much fanfare and media coverage. He was even welcomed with a big parade. But soon after this, Julie Anderson appeared, and she insisted that that boy was her son, Bruce, and not Bobby at all. Just like William Walters, the man who he had been with, had claimed. So was it Bobby or Bruce? The two women claimed the boy to be their own. A legal battle ensued. Julie Anderson was very poor. She couldn't afford a lawyer, so she was uneducated, she was unmarried, and she was the mother to 3, with 2 of her children having already died. She claimed that he was her son, but no one believed her. It was easy to just discount her credibility, and the courts eventually sided with the Dunbars, and they retained custody of the boy who lived his entire life as Bobby Dunbar. But was he? Time passed, and Walters was convicted of kidnapping, but he only served 2 years before he won his appeal. Julie Anderson settled down in a nearby town and began a new life there. She eventually got married, and she had 7 children. Meanwhile, the boy that she claimed was her son continued to live as Bobby Dunbar. Unlike Anderson, the Dunbars were a privileged family. They had class, they had money, and being their child, he had access to many of the privileges that he would not have had otherwise. He married, he had 4 children of his own before dying in 1966. And that was that. Or was it? In 2004, DNA profiling established that in retrospect, the boy that was found with Walters and returned to the Dunbars was not Bobby Dunbar at all. He was not a blood relative of the Dunbar family, and it's most likely that he was in fact Julie Anderson's son, Bruce. The episode in This American Life goes into way more depth than I ever could, but basically, one of his granddaughters decided to investigate the case, hoping to prove that Bobby was in fact a Dunbar, but her investigation ended up proving otherwise. It led her to doubt instead of certainty, and when a reporter finally had a DNA test conducted, the truth was revealed. So now that they knew that the found child wasn't the missing Bobby Dunbar at all, but in fact Julie Anderson's son Bruce, that leaves us with this question: what happened to the real Bobby Dunbar? While we'll never know for sure, it's most likely that Bobby Dunbar stumbled into the lake and possibly was eaten by an alligator, as theorized in the podcast episode and like I mentioned earlier in this video. As for the man that became known as Bobby, while he publicly presented himself as Bobby, it seems that he may have had his own personal doubts about his identity. In fact, he went to visit the Andersons in secret before he passed away. He had a very happy and successful life. He loved his family very much, so in the end, I wonder, does it really matter? Maybe not for him. What do you think? In some ways, it's a very sad story because a woman lost her son. Actually, 2 women lost their son because Julie Anderson didn't have the means to fight for her son back. And we'll never know what happened to the real Bobby Dunbar. But the boy also seemed willing to be known as Bobby Dunbar and certainly had access to many more privileges because of his adoption into the family, although it doesn't make it right. Anyway, that's the story I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this very first installment for Curious and Clean. If you enjoyed it, it would be great if you shared, liked, and commented to give this video a little boost. I'm Kate, and I hope to see you next time here on It Came From a Vlog.